Hi, and welcome to another episode of Celebrating Small Family Businesses. Today, we are celebrating Sheley and Chris Brien of Brien Construction, and also Sheley has her own podcast. And action, I went blank, sorry. More action, that's it, more action. And that really was what I picked up from listening to you, is that you're very pragmatic about it. Like, you want to get to the meat, and you want your guest, or you want to talk about stuff that's really actionable. And that was is that like a theme in your business, in your life? And let's go there first.
It's a good pickup, John. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think at the end of the day, sometimes the worst thing we can do is inaction, right? Towards our goals. Too many decisions to make, maybe failures that are holding you back because you can't trust yourself going forward, fear of judgment of other people on you that keeps you frozen. And that's like the worst thing that you can do, is just take no action. And so, the show is all about just taking more action, whatever that is, and removing the labels of good action or bad action. It's just moving forward. Whether it works out how you intended or not is irrelevant. You will always learn something that you can apply going forward.
Yeah, that's kind of one of our themes is, if it didn't work, what did work about what didn't work?
Yes. I love that.
Because you've got to have that regrouping, so to speak.
There's always a silver lining in there.
There's always something that you needed to learn.
Yep.
So true. So true.
So tell us a little bit about how Brien Construction got started, and where did you guys come together? Because I think, you originally maybe had separate careers.
Yeah.
Chris, what about it?
Talk about it.
Well, let's see. Brien Contracting was started in 2017. That was following a number of years of myself being in the construction industry, mostly on like the civil infrastructure, highway, and back to 2011. Before that, I was in commercial real estate in most different forms. So it was just kind of recruited in construction, went from there, learned what I needed to learn. And then, we had a small stint in having a concrete crushing company, and that's a whole nother story. But we started the vertical construction in 2017, right off the bat, jumping into doing restaurant work. And we've been riding through ever since, rode through the pandemic, and we just continue to grow and continue to go strong. And so it's been a great ride. I love doing it. Love being in construction, all commercial. We've done a few residential projects, but our wheelhouse is definitely commercial. That's where we prefer to be.
I can understand that. I would feel the same way about real estate. Much cleaner.
No emotion. Get to the numbers.
Yeah.
Get to the bottom line. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So it seems clear that your experience in commercial real estate would have informed a lot about, when you're doing commercial construction, what your clients are expecting and kind of what their world is like. How about the civil construction? How did that inform what you're doing?
It's a completely different animal than the vertical side of it. But I would say that there is a lot, it's a different level. I guess, how would I compare it to like vertical? It's more detail oriented, more heavily on the engineering side than vertical. There's a lot of unforeseen stuff that you're dealing with when you're getting into the ground and you're going underground, where you pretty much know what you're doing when you're going, building anything from the ground up. So it's, I don't want to say every job's different. I don't want to say it's all cookie cutter, but it's kind of like just a repeat process, where the civil side of it is kind of different every time. I mean, you really don't know what you're getting into once you get through the ground. So, it's just different levels of scale too. So, but I think that helped us tremendously from that experience, from working with municipalities and even federal work and airport work, to transferring in like mainly the communication skills, the like time management skills, the reporting skills, the documentation skills are a different level. So that helps transfer over to the commercial side of it, where it's kind of not done that way. It's more Wild Westish, I would call it maybe. So we're able to keep that formal process of it into our main construction side.
That's really cool. Yeah, I was thinking that, especially when you mentioned, as soon as you said municipalities, I'm thinking, oh yeah, paperwork, the project management and the documentation and the communication has to be next level in the civil side. So those systems would really fit. I mean,
it's
really,
day and night. I mean, yeah, it's the paperwork itself. You mentioned paperwork. I mean, just the bidding process alone. I mean, sometimes it's literally a full-time job just to bid a project and that side of it, just with the amount of paperwork you have to do. So
aren't there consultants that's their job? Is there kind of that middleman between?
Yeah, I mean there are. We've ran into a few of them. Mostly where we run into the consultants is on like the homeowners association sides, because they'll come in and they'll represent a homeowners association, and as a consultant, and so you'll work through them. But from the the bidding part of it, from that side of it, the municipalities, it's better to keep that stuff in house, just because it's such a numbers game on winning it. You keep that stuff in house. So yeah.
I see. And so Sheley, what you had a corporate career for 20 plus years, I think I read.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Nice. So I had nothing to do with construction at all. But it's just like going back to, taking more action. Is my career was finance, and then I went into pharmaceuticals. Then I went into media, and I decided to try to run a restaurant and own a restaurant at one point, because why not? And then, all of that experience just built up to be able to, like what Chris was just mentioning about, that civil work and the details, when it comes to having to do that type of work versus general contracting. Here in Arizona, he mentions the Wild Wild West, and we're talking commercial, which is more organized, let's say, versus residential is truly, it's like Mad Max versus like commercial out here. But I think one of the reasons that we've been able to work with such large organizations and get repeat work is because of that, like, formality of like my experience in corporate and the organization. And I understand how these large corporations are working and the employees that we work with and what they are concerned with being employees in that organization. And Chris's heavy background in organizing and being able to run these projects, high touch point communication, follow through on paperwork, all of kind of the nitty gritty stuff where, you even saw, if you're watching this, you even saw his face like, oh my gosh, the paperwork in civil was like crazy. But it was such great experience because it's separating us now from the Wild West. Like, we're setting a new standard on what is the expectation for commercial general contracting here in Arizona.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's actually one thing that Sheley helped me really understand when she came in and lent her experience to the construction company, was working with corporate companies, because I never was in the corporate game. I never worked for a big corporation, so I don't really have the experience with the different levels of things and the different kind of pain points of your customers that you work with. And so her experience of being through that side of it, that game, and realizing like why is this one specific construction manager really focused on this particular item? And to me, it's like, why are we doing this? And, when I talked to Sheley about that, she's like, well, you got to remember there's different layers upon layers that he's answering to. And there's always some underlying issue on why they're focusing on that one thing from a corporate perspective. So she helps really shed some light on that with her experience in the corporate environment.
That's awesome. Yeah. I mean, and that person might be caught in a vice of politics beyond the job stuff and the risk management.
Yep.
100% self-preservation in a lot of these large organizations, right? And I understand that. We both do.
A lot of CYA.
This is
cool. Yeah. That's another way to put it, Connie.
I think that's the theme.
Yep.
100%.
So what, I'm going to jump into the family side of it. So you brought a lot of skills from your various experiences. Now you're husband and wife working together in the business. How did you manage that from get-go, and what have you learned?
I don't even know. I feel like I just blacked out on that for a while.
Well, you're still married, right? So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. We're still married.
That's a good thing. I don't know. You want to answer that?
I can answer it if you want me to. Yeah. It was a roller coaster, honestly. We're two very strong personalities. And we both kind of, when it first started, we came in Bulls and China Shop, and we just were like, do this, let's go this, stay out of my lane, you stay in your lane. Like there was a lot of like trying to figure it out. And in the beginning, it was like a roller coaster where it would be like, great. And then we started understanding each other's strengths are also the opposite's weakness. So where I don't love to operate in gray, I love black and white. I'm learning how to operate in gray. Construction, like he operates in gray on a daily basis. So something like that where I might get nervous, he's okay with like that level of risk or what's going on. So being able to lean on each other in those areas, or understanding different communications, or I love systems, processes, and operations. And so while in the field it's operating in a lot of gray, we don't have that. But as we bring on additional team, that don't have the experience that Chris does to run some of these jobs, superintendents, project managers, engineers, to be able to do this, we have to have the systems to be able to like extract what's in his brain and put it out. So he sees the value in that, but he doesn't want to do it. I love to do that. So like, kind of learning different areas where we can both thrive. And I think at the end of the day, and we've had to say this on multiple times, is like, we always have the same end goal. We always do. We just have very different ways of getting there sometimes.
Yeah.
And not one way is right and not one way is wrong. They're just different. And having tough conversations when sometimes we need, like, I just need you to listen, not try and solve the problem. Just listen so that we can, figure it out. And it's still going on. I mean, it's still going on, but we just celebrated 19 years married. So, yep. And it's a lot of fun. It's hard. It's work. It's work.
It is.
But it's wonderful.
I'd say two things on the family side that I'd like to highlight would be, one, that we definitely make time. Right now it's a little difficult because of summer vacation with the kids, but we definitely make time to do like date nights, or we have like a standing day date on a Friday, usually at least for us in construction, a lot of times by the time Friday rolls around, everyone's cutting out by 2:00 in the afternoon. So we usually do like a lunch date around noon or 1, and just the two of us. And sometimes we talk business, sometimes we don't. Sometimes we just talk about the travel we want to do. And so like at the end of the week, that really helps kind of just like, relax, everything's so crazy. We can just reconnect with the stuff that we want to do. And that I feel like strengthens us. And then with the kids, it's keeping them involved in what we're doing. Mm-hmm. So they're at an age right now, they're not really young. They're 12 and 14. So they understand when they see us working in the office and we're doing things, and we definitely involve them. I try and get my daughter involved in doing estimating and, doing measurements off plans. My son's at the age now where I actually take him to work a couple times, and I'll have him, do demolition or drywall or paint. And he likes being around all the guys working. So keeping them involved in the process is like, then it becomes more of like this family kind of business that we hope it to be down the road as we grow this. So.
Oh, that's very
smart.
Cool. So lots of things there. Sheley, you mentioned the male dilemma. That's that. Am I trying to solve this, or is this one of those times you need me to just listen? It took me a long time to learn that, didn't it? I was automatically trying to fix it.
God.
I'm still learning it. Like I think, but we both are.
Funny. You just have to go
and
listen.
Yeah. Yep. Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's because it's like the emotions are running high, and it's like, how do we make that stop? So surely it's got to be, that we fix it, but no, it's not.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, that could be expanded, of course, into a lot of other things, but that communication, figuring that out, and being willing and able to say, I just need you to listen.
Yeah.
Recognizing that and not letting it escalate a different direction. Huge.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and it's, when you think about back in my corporate days, they talk about crucial conversations, right? You'd have to have a crucial conversation. It's like nothing was a problem. It was a challenge, like all these things, right? But it's different when it's your spouse, right? There's emotions, there's history, there's love, there's all of these things going on. And sometimes like we speak too quick before processing exactly what is going on. And the more that we can communicate and have those times, like Chris was talking about the day dates, we also have a Tuesday business meeting, just the two of us. So it's like we've scheduled out these times, and these are the times, and they're set in the calendar. So when someone tries to schedule with us on those days or those times, it's like, no, unavailable. Like we are unavailable because we already have something on the books for us. And I think I either did a post on this or maybe even a podcast episode, just how to make sure that if you are working with your spouse, like your marriage is the most important part of the partnership over the business. I think that is like keeping that in mind, that nothing like our family, our most important possessions, nothing is without us. And so that's like number one above all else. Even
Very
when
wise. Very
might
wise.
argue.
Yeah, because I mean, ultimately, family, whether it's marriage or family relationship, the business can go away, right? But you're still there.
Yeah.
You're still there, and you're still family, and you don't want to have to be repairing that.
No way.
You need that, if something changes with the business for whatever. I mean, sometimes, we were in the citrus business. That's a dying industry here in Florida. So we had to shut it down. And at 50 years old, I'm like the thing I thought I was going to retire from, the family business, I had to start over and figure out, okay, now what? So it can happen.
Yeah, we're on plan F.
But,
Literally, we are on plan F.
Oh yeah, I know.
Just more practice.
Yeah.
More practice.
Exactly.
Right?
all practice. It is all practice.
Oh yeah.
So I love what you said about the kids too, that you're involving them, keeping them informed, kind of letting them see behind the curtain. They know what's going on. They can understand, when there's stress, what's causing it. They're not just like, some families want to hide the business or hide their stresses from their kids. That's kind of, I think, an old school thing, but that didn't usually work well, right? Because then the kids don't know, they feel something's wrong, but they don't know what it is.
Yeah. And they don't really know, like they see us, maybe me gone more or working in the office a lot, even on the weekends, and think that we're maybe neglecting them. That's the last thing I want them to feel. So it's like, we obviously carve out time to spend specifically with them, but like, I would like to bring them in here and show us what we're working on. And even like, breaking this down here, Jax, here's what my son's name is Jax. Here's what we're doing. Here's what we're working on. What do you think of this? And ask him questions and try. He sometimes glosses over and you can tell he's super bored and doesn't want anything to do with it, but it's just involving him in the process. It's like going out and playing catch in the backyard. It's just the time that we're spending together is what's important.
And he's also getting more than what you think he's getting.
Yeah.
Because especially because our kids are much, much older now, and the feedback that we're getting is, they heard much more than what we more than what we wish they had learned.
Like video recorders from 2 years old on.
Yeah.
They're like little elephants, right?
Yeah.
Remember when?
Yeah.
And I'm hearing it coming out of the one son who has his own children, the exact things that we were saying back in the day. And it's kind of like, and I'm looking at him, he's just rolling his eyes going, yeah, that should not have come out of my mouth.
So have you caught yourself doing that? Have you like, oh my God, I just heard my parent come out of my mouth?
I maybe once or twice. I can't think of it, but I do. There's kind of a couple things I think I remember.
Wait till you get to the real teenage years.
It may happen. I can't predict the future, but don't be surprised if one day something comes out of your mouth and you think, it sounds like an echo from your past.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I'm sure. I am sure. That's coming.
So Sheley, how did you get into the health aspect of this?
Well, I have a really unique story just with health in general. It is just personally, when I was in the financial industry, I built a big book of business, and then I decided I don't want to do this anymore. and I moved over to pharmaceuticals. Well, at that time, I was just working so hard, long hours, stacked ranks. So I always wanted to be first, like doing all of these extra things that I just I neglected my health. And unfortunately, my body had gotten so weak that I went blind in my left eye.
Wow.
And essentially a virus that we all have, right? Or I would say 40 and above, because now they have a vaccine for it, is chickenpox. Well, as an adult, it can come back as shingles. It's the same virus. It just comes back out, and it came out of my optic nerve. And so my body was just weak and couldn't. If you had chickenpox, you have the virus for the rest of your life. Your body does a good job of keeping it dormant. It arises out of stress or when you're not taking care of yourself. And so it came out of my optic nerve and left me blind. And so when that happened, it just kind of started a cascade of things of like, okay, I got to think a little bit bigger. I got to take better care of myself. And, then I went into the pharmaceutical industry and I learned a whole bunch just about the medical industry and being a patient myself with kind of a unique background and various other things. This is something obviously we teach our kids and we do for us in the business too, is just being an advocate for yourself. And so, that comes to your health too, not just even being an advocate for your business and showing how great you are for your business and advocate for your team, but it's even for yourself. And so, I think a lot of it can be handled just with some education in understanding proper nutrition, as well as the importance of exercise and just expanding our minds, like reading and podcasting, listening to, I'm a podcast host, but also listening to very specific podcasts. I always protect what I listen to just as much as I protect what I ingest in my food. I think it's one of the secret weapons that we can use as business owners. Is the better we take care of ourselves, the better we can perform every day in our business. The better parents that we can be, the better, team that we can be when we take care of ourselves. Like we used to lift heavy and we've done fitness competition. We used to do all this, but now we're like older and we've done it for a long time. And we're like, oh my gosh, this hurts now. And I don't want to go that hard anymore. And like, oh man, we're doing yoga. Like what? But it's evolving with what we need, right? Like, while in the past, like lifting heavy was kind of a release too, because just stress and everything. Now it's like exhausting. So we need a different something. Like, what is that going to be? My daughter and I ride horses. Like that's a way for me to kind of go take care of myself too. Planning vacations, like all of these things are around health. And it's not just like physically how you feel. It's or the physical appearance of how you look. That's actually probably last on the totem pole. It's everything else, that's inside. So health is just something that, I've just like we bring our kids along in learning the business and plans and all of that. I teach them what carbs and fats and proteins are. And, my son is a gymnast, like how important it is with him building muscle to eat proper stuff, how they, what is a good snack that's nutritious versus not. And of course they eat ice cream and chicken nuggets and mac and cheese. Of course they do. It's not about restriction. It's just about understanding. Yeah. And that's just it. Like they know when they're tired, it's like, okay, we're going to bed. Like your body just needs to recharge,
Listen
so it's just
to
having
your body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I did a bunch of research into different diseases at one point. What causes this? And there were two themes that I found. One theme was that all the major diseases I found, somewhere in the discussion said, scientists or doctors really don't know what causes this, and blah, blah, blah. And we think, and there's this associated, and blah, but there was always that theme. And then the other theme was lifestyle factors. There's 4 lifestyle factors, right? Rest, movement, nutrition, and I said rest, sleep, and then also managing stress. And those 4 things, they universally said those 4 things have more impact on your prevention in your health than any medicine, anything, any medical treatment that anybody can do. And they're all in your control as a patient.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly.
It's just
basics.
knowledge, right? Like it's just knowledge, you know. If you're going to look at a P&L, and if you're going to look at like your marketing, you know, launch or whatever, and how that performed, it's just data to tell you what's going on so that you can make changes. Our body just needs that same information too, that, you know, once we understand it, we can make adjustments, you know. Like some days, like even on vacation, we'll be working, right? Small business is what we do, is that we'll be working. But then some days I'm like, you know what? I need to be done. Like I just need to be done for the day, and that's fine. Then we come back and even stronger the next. So I think that there's so much behind it, but what you said, those 4 points are incredibly important. Yeah. Incredibly. I mean, when you see construction guys out on the site, I don't know anyone else that looks like him. Mm-hmm. No one, you know, and it's like they've just worked and ate nutrition or like fast food like 100% of the time. And I get it sometimes when we are busy and it's hard to have choices. But it's a choice not to take action and plan ahead and like plan your lunch and, you know, have nutritious options available at your fingertips rather than the bag of chips. Like these are all just choices, but it comes from education. And I love that you did the research on that. I'm sure Dr. Google was scary enough when you started down that path. But I think it's just the more knowledge you can get, then you can make educated decisions for yourself.
In our work with small family businesses, one of the things we do is ask about self-care. You know, what do you do for self-care? And talk about that, because I consider it an essential business function. It is a management function. If you, especially as a business owner, if you drop out, I mean, can the business run without you? Like Chris, if you took a month off, would it just keep right going without you there? Yeah. So,
not yet.
So that's, you know, I try to put that in front of the client and say, okay, what happens if you fall out, right? Yeah. So if it's not like, oh, well, we're fine, then let's talk about self-care and what are you doing, and make that a priority, because that's every bit as important as cash flow.
Well, and the thing is that so many people, and I get it, business owners, leaders in organizations are so driven and focused on their end goal that it's like, oh, I'll take care of myself when. I'll do that when. I got to do this and then I'll do that. Like it's always like something else is the priority over it. And as soon as, you know, you make that shift and actually go, no, I'm the priority, and then everything else will be better because I am the priority, it changes the game. Mm-hmm. Like it truly changes the game. And there's periods of time where we've been able to be even more focused on our health and wellness. And then times that, you know what, the balance was off, and that's okay. And we had to focus more on the business, and there were more things going on. It didn't mean that it stopped 100%, but it was definitely, I think the word balance is a joke anyway, but it was definitely way off kilter. And so, you know, the thing is that it's never been gone. Us being priorities or taking care of our health. Like I'm a huge advocate. You know, we've got 2 athlete kids. I would consider it athletes. Like things that we do, it's very important. Like I have all the dinners planned for the week. We have very nutritious food all the time, because I'm like, at very least, we will be fed well, in the sense of like, it will give us the proper fuel and energy to be able to do the things that we all do as a family, which is a lot. Like we pull long days. And so I think that it's important that you bring that up, because it isn't talked about a lot, you know, amongst small business owners or entrepreneurs.
Yeah, because there's always something that's you know, pulling you away if you don't make time for it. If you don't put it on that calendar.
Right.
If you don't,
you'll just go right by your time to go to the gym and keep working.
And if you have to go at 5 o'clock in the morning, you're there with all the doctors who are just getting off.
Yeah.
Or right before they go in. So it's fine.
Yeah.
Well, and there's a theme you're probably both familiar with. It was called the tyranny of the urgent, right?
I haven't heard that one.
There's urgent and there's important. And the urgent stuff is that stuff that always feels like, oh, I have to take care of this first. And there's a never-ending supply of that stuff. it just never stops. It's never over. The inbox is always full, and it of course depends on what you assign as urgent. But you've got to shift that and figure out, okay, what's important, and we're going to do that first, or make that. And I love what you said about balance, Sheley. That because it's like this. It's like the roller coaster you talked about in the beginning. It really never stops, right? You got times. You said there's times, Chris, when you guys are spending less time with the kids. You don't want them to feel like you're neglecting them, but you bring them in and you show them, oh, we got all this going on, and it's temporary, right? And
right. Yeah, it's definitely phases for sure. There's times when you're really busy and you got to focus, and there's times when it's less busy and you can, take advantage of other things. So absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, an emergency on your part does not constitute an emergency on mine. That's our favorite saying.
There was a service department at some business and they said lack of planning on your part does not constitute an emergency on my part, which was a different take on it. Right.
That's true. That's
very true.
And especially in a small family business, because you're constantly being bombarded with the phone, the emails, somebody walking in, whatever it is, and trying to just carve out that even 2 minutes to take a breath. As we well know, sometimes it's difficult.
Oh yeah.
And especially in a service industry.
No, you're absolutely right. And like I have more control over my schedule than Chris does. Sure. He has more forward facing with the clients in the field, and the clients either being our subcontractors that we're working with, our team, and or our client, or the property manager, like so many people. But for me, what I have found, and I know that you do this to a point, I just have more ability to do it, is like today is Tuesday. Tuesday is my meeting day. I literally stack up all my meetings because if I have too many meetings throughout my week, I can't get any work done. And so I will just block out certain days, and I'm like, these are the days that I have meetings. Every other day, it's mine. And if I do take a meeting, it's not till the afternoon. And that was a big mind shift for me because I'm a morning person. So I'm going to get everything done in the morning. I want to check all those boxes and move right on, right? But I wasn't getting any work done. And so I had to really take control over my schedule and be like, okay, meetings. Like I had 3 hour-long meetings today already. And I'm like, okay, let me push those all on one day. And if we can't get it on that day, that's fine. We're going to go out next week or the week after. I'm not going to flex my schedule. I think the more that we protect our time, it allows us to not only get the important work done, not take care of the fires, but get the important work done, and also stick to the other things that are important to us. Running this business is obviously very important, but our family and us, and like having the dates, having the date night, having the time to go to the gym, having the time to spend with the kids, like those are important, but we have to take control of our schedule to be able to do that. And there's times where my schedule is out of control and summer vacation, and then times when, it comes back in line and I can just be more protective of it.
Mm-hmm.
Proactive versus reactive. And trying to be as proactive as possible when you can. But there's times, like you were saying, when something happens, you have to react. You have to respond at least. Cool.
Great area.
Was there any particular tool, going back to how you figured out your strengths? Was there any assessment or tool or process you went through to help identify your individual strengths, or did you just kind of figure it out from button heads?
There wasn't a specific tool.
No, there was no tool.
There was no tool. I think it was a lot of conversations, a lot of
fighting,
and ego, like setting the ego aside.
Yeah.
Like, I love systems and processes, like I said, and I hear stuff that's going on in the field, but I'm not in the field experiencing it. And so I hear this and I'm like, let me come in and fix it with a process and a system. And that's not my lane, because I'm not living that. And I don't understand the gray of what's going on in there. And so while I think that's the solution, I really don't have the experience to prove it's the solution. And so I had to kind of step back and be like, well, wait a minute, he knows this best. Now that I'm coming out there and we're building a team, well, now it's a little bit like we have the ability to create kind of the Brien contracting process in how we work with clients, start a project, end a project, punch list, like all these different things, that now we can give tools to our team to be like, hey, make sure you hit every check mark on this. Otherwise we're going to miss something on a punch walk or something. So it's through trial and error there.
Yeah.
I don't know that there's, I mean, you could do like a strength finder, you could do like the disc, we know we're drivers. We know that, like we could, but like, I think it's understanding that and letting the other person shine when they're good and owning it when you screw up.
Yep.
Yeah. I think it's been hard. I will say that I've had business partners before, and from like a standpoint of roles within what you do and what areas that your expertise is and your strengths are, I said it, I think it was harder to figure that out with a spouse than it was with just someone who you partner with. Because I feel like when you partner with someone in the business, you both feel like you're bringing different strengths already to the business. So when you form it, you're like, well, I'll do this and I can do this and we can put this together and partner up and go on it. And it's kind of where you guys start, as opposed to when you're doing it from we're kind of operating, and then you bring in your spouse, and like Sheley came into construction, and then I feel like it's a lot harder to work your way through who's good at what, who's going to handle what. And then you combine that also with, you have an intertwined personal relationship outside of the business. It's one of the more challenging things, I think I would say it would be when you're doing a partnership, for sure, is it's tough. It's tough.
Oh,
So
you've
a
got
lot of
history
communication.
that you've got to balance.
Yes. Oh yeah.
So what's a
Yeah.
tip that you would offer to other small family businesses when they're trying to sort that out?
I would say over communicate crystal clear on not only whatever topic your discussion, or how you like how something, I guess I want to say feels, but like almost like openness from one person's end. So like the communication, just using us as an example, the breakdown we've had is like what Sheley said, from what's going out on site on a daily basis, where she's operating in the blind. She doesn't know what's happening out there and what's going on. And it happens so quick for us that I come home, or she finds something out and she wants to talk about topic A, but I'm already on topic Q because we've solved that. Something else come up. We moved down, we changed orders, we changed the schedule. Now this is happening. And now we're here, and all that blew by her. And so for me, it's like, all right, we had figured out we're moved on, but she really wants to understand what happened and what went on and what we're talking about and where we're going. And is it bad? Is it good? Is it risk? Is what's not? And it's so like going back and rehashing that. So it's like, it's communication. It's just, it's so much just, and not like, I can tend to feel like, well, I've already done this. I've already talked about it and you don't know what's going on. So I'm not going to really address it with you. But like, that doesn't really take into account like what she needs to know and what she has to make her decisions based on what she does. So it's just over communication and not trying very, very hard not to take things personal.
I think what you said at the end is the most important thing.
Yes.
Is that like, is just not take it personal. You know, like if I say we could have done this better or we could have done that better, it's not Chris Brien could have done it better. I'm like, what did we learn? How can we be better? And ultimately we are building this to fire ourselves. Like we want a legacy company, but we want to fire ourselves. We still will be here, but we want to bring up such an incredible team and culture that they don't need us. You know what I mean? Like they don't need us. And that's what it's like raising our kids. It might be a bad analogy. We want them to be able to equip to make great decisions, and they're going to screw up, but like, that's okay. Learn from it, move on. And so it's like, as we do that with the team, is just like not take anything personal and know what was it for me is to remember we always have the same goal. Like our same goal, it is the same. And some days I think my way is a better way. And if that's true, I'm going to stick my guns in it. But some days he might say something. I'm like, damn, I never thought about that. Like, that's actually a really good point. We should do that. Like being open to hear both sides, like the good and the bad, and like remembering, like, no matter what it is, it's not personal. We're just trying to get towards our end goal. Right. So like, how do we do that? How do we learn from each other and make it so it's just easier. And it's everything in business is communication.
Thank you.
The client with the team.
It's touchdown. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yeah. We like to say that information flow precedes cash flow. It's a leading indicator. It's the root. Yep. That's the flow of the blood in the business, is the information, the communication.
And everybody wants it the opposite way. They want the cash flow first, and then we'll talk to you.
Well, they want to measure by the cash, and it's really a secondary thing. The money is an after effect.
Absolutely. Yep.
100% agree.
I love the over communication. We don't necessarily refer to it like that, but it does appear like that when you're really doing it, when you're thorough. Like Chris, did I understand? Now I heard you say this, and I want to make sure I got it right. So did you mean it this way or did you mean it that way, right? That asking clarifying questions, when you can explain somebody else's position to them in a way that, yeah, wow, you really got it. I hadn't thought of it that way. Now you're communicating, right? Yeah. And then absolutely. And then when both people feel understood, then the person, it's almost impossible to take it personally.
Right.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly.
100%.
And setting boundaries. That's something new that we've tried to been working on, is like setting communication boundaries for things like, this is like a boundary for me, don't cross it. Like, otherwise it's going to, like, we not like from a negative standpoint, but just like when we're having conversations or we things are getting heated or whatever like that. It's just kind of like, okay, that's just let you know that's kind of getting into personal territory. I know you didn't mean it that way, but let's kind of rephrase it, or let's talk about something else or something like that. So that is where I'm looking.
Yeah, no, and that's just something new, right? Is, we're getting new experience, new perspective every single day. And so we're evolving as who we are, that it's like having those communication boundaries as far as like, okay, like when it's hitting a personal note and maybe I'm working through something personal or he's working through something personal, and what I said triggered that. And it's like, I need to respect that he's working through that. And it's like, okay, let's rephrase, or let's take a break, or let's come back, or whatever. And I think that's a marriage too.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And how you describe that, I mean, is like, I'm feeling this way rather than you made me feel, right?
Yeah.
And it's totally different energy. And if it's I'm feeling and I need to take a break from this subject for now, wow, okay. I mean, that brings out the caring of the other person, and that's, where your relationship then can really come in. In corporate, they're going to like, so what? What, right? So what about what you're feeling? We got jobs to do. Get over it.
Exactly.
And there's 12 people standing behind you ready for your position.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Wow. So true.
Yeah, and
so true.
We've worked a lot on communication in as far as what words mean. Because what a word I think would mean one thing, he would come along going, where did you get that from? No, that's not, no, it means this. So then we go to the dictionary and go, okay, let's go through the synonyms and let's go through it. And then we finally go, all right, we can agree on that one.
Yeah.
And that doesn't happen every day, but it's a great illustration of how much we behave to the meanings of the words that we have. And just like we're speaking the same language, basically the language is, we've agreed that this collection of sounds is a word, and the word means this, right? But sometimes the same word people have very different meanings for, and it may be like you were saying from something in the past. I say dog, right? And if you're thinking a German Shepherd that was snarling at you, and I'm thinking a little Chihuahua, lifting its leg on the whatever, very different mental pictures, very different emotional reaction to that memory, and so the conversation can go sideways, and unless you ask, you don't know that you're using different definitions for the word.
And West Coast is different from East Coast, even because we've lived in the West Coast, and we've lived majority of our time here in the East Coast, but still the words don't sometimes translate.
No, they're different. Yep.
And so it's always
so true.
fascinating. We love language.
I,
And
Wow.
I think we're getting time.
we are getting close to time. I know
Yeah,
you've
you
got
need to go.
You got to go. This has been amazing.
Yes.
Thank you so much for spending this time with us. I want to I'll make sure we put in the show notes how to reach you guys. So thank you again for spending this time with us, and we will look forward to a future conversation.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.